We're live.
It looks like we are live. Good evening, everybody. I'm Dustin Coiner from Track Days and CRA, I guess. And I'm online here with Richard Stanboli from the Attack Yamaha crew. The official name is Fresh and Lean Progressive Yamaha Racing.
Yeah, that's it. You got it right.
So what's going on, Richard? You had a successful weekend there at the Ridge. So
yeah, almost perfect.
Yeah, well, perfect for Jake.
yeah. Well, I look at the whole team, right? So it was 1-2 in the first one and 1-3 in the second one. I knew the second one was going to be a little bit harder because Cam and Petrucci were pretty much on the same pace. Just Petrucci's really strong on the brakes. I knew he'd be really hard to pass back if he ever got through. So that was kind of how the race went. Cam had a good run at him again, though. Anyway, we can start at the beginning, and I heard you had a little good CRA weekend too up at Laguna Seca.
Dude, we sure did, man. It was
okay. Let's go back to your bikes.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later, man. But yeah, it was a great weekend. I'm wearing the shirt and everything.
Yeah, you had a big turnout, right?
Yeah, we did, man. Laguna, when we roll in, it looked like a national.
Yeah, a lot of people were talking about going. I mean, how often do your average California club racers get to race on their own at Laguna Seca without entering a national?
Well, that's exactly why we did it. I looked it up. I couldn't find the exact history on it, but everybody I talked to said at least 40 years. So, I mean, probably early 80s.
I can't ever remember one.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think AFF did
always, back in the day in the 90s or whatever, we always were like, oh yeah, the AMA Nationals are coming. So let's see who can do a wild card, who's going to be fastest in the local group,
Right. And I'm sure there was some of the racers that were there over the weekend planning on doing that, going to the national in a couple of weeks. Maybe they were practicing their setup or whatever. I don't know, but
yeah, I guess if they're not, I don't remember how the rules work. If they're not a full-time entry, that they can actually practice and race and do all that stuff right up to the race time.
Yep.
No 30-day limit.
Correct.
Yeah.
So, we had the likes of like Andrew Lee there and, obviously Bryce Prince and Brendan Kettleson, like those were Toby Kamsick too. So, I mean, we had some guys that, I've seen on the national circuit before. So it was a lot of fun.
Cool.
But anyway, so let's talk about what you like. Nobody wants to talk about club racing crap.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of iconic, it's to have a club race at Laguna Seca.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the place Laguna Seca is one of those iconic facilities,
pretty special.
Man,
I always look forward to going that one.
I told you, man, every time I went over turn one, I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, you guys need to learn some suspension stuff. I mean, what I heard you had in your suspension, I'm like, we don't even ride that in the rain.
Yeah, well, I think you had a term for it.
Hashtag Willow guy.
Well, there was I haven't been a Willow guy in forever, though.
Yeah, you probably have that. I don't know what a setup is in your head since then.
We spent so much effort with the electronic stuff. I really haven't touched the suspension much at all.
Yeah. You guys have told me you weren't using much stroke, and then the direction you guys went, I'm like, whoa, went the other way. You guys should have went. Normally, when I see a rider's not using a whole lot of stroke in an area where you should be using a lot of stroke, and he's struggling on the brakes, I usually go stiffer.
Oh,
because what's usually the case is, again, last time I think we touched on some of these Newton's laws, and Newton's third law, action, reaction, balance of forces, all that kind of stuff. If you don't have something pushing back at you, you won't push against it.
Right.
So if the fork compresses pretty quickly, you're gonna release that brake lever. You're gonna, whoa, that's too fast. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but if you have some resistance against it, you can pull that brake lever a lot harder, and then go, oh, I stopped way too soon. So then you just keep pushing your brake marker. That's normally the way you approach it. You go, oh, I stopped too soon. So the next time around, you push a little further. Oh, I still stopped too soon. But if you don't have a front end that could do that, you're always going to go, oh, it's diving so quick, I'm going to release the brake, and I overshot my apex. But I'm braking way back there. I don't understand why. I bet if you look at your brake.
I think you had I think you had another word for that, actually.
Yeah, it's
pussy.
Yeah, one of those words. Yeah, but see, if you don't have that feel, it doesn't matter how masculine you are, you're just never going to do it.
Yeah, I mean, there was many times where I could hear, Josh Hayes told me a bunch of stuff over the years. He's been kind of coaching me.
Josh Hayes is on the other end of the spectrum. His front end is so stiff. He never used any of the stroke.
Yeah, well, he told me that
Tony Ilias.
He gets into the corner and he thinks to himself, "Oh my God, I don't think I'm going to make it." And I was thinking that every time going into turn 2, every lap going into turn 2. I was like, "Oh my God, this is going to be the one.
It's going to be the last time around.
This is the one where I'm going to have the crash truck come get me." Like,
well, worse than that is, I mean, you're just way too soft in the front. So downhills, that soft, no way. You got to start working on that chassis, not just electronics.
Yeah, well, it was kind of interesting having Josef there. He's fun, and he's man, that dude jumps right in there and asks me questions, and I would just walk away after I would answer his questions, and he would go and work on the bike.
Yeah.
I don't know anything, so I just ride the thing. So he asked me questions, and that's the direction we went based on the answers he got.
Yeah.
So
it sounded like it was a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, it was a great time. But yeah, so you know what? You got some lap records, right?
I went a little bit deeper into the lap records there. Yeah.
He broke the overall race record and the qualifying record this time, right?
I think that both Jake and Cam broke the race lap record on day one.
Yes.
And then Jake broke it again the next day.
Right.
He actually did 39 in race 2, which was pretty damn good because the temperature had gone up a little bit. The ambient for sure was hotter, and it's just really strange. We come to the rain bucket of the U.S. and it's dry, super dry and hot. It's like racing in the desert. It was crazy.
That's interesting because that place is known for being rain all day, every day. And then when you guys come, all of a sudden it gets hot.
Yeah, and dry.
I mean, it was kind of hot a couple of years ago when we went there for the tests too, right? So
it was okay. It wasn't. Yeah. It was nice and dry. So we've gotten basically since that place we've tested dry and we've raced dry twice. It's pretty amazing. I think that's going to be the last time though. But next time it'll be raining buckets.
So it looked like the track looked like they just painted the curbing. It looked. I remember when I was there with you guys at the test a couple of years ago. All the curbings were just bare concrete. So
yeah, no, the track looks amazing, really. I mean, I think the asphalt looks clean. Remember how broken up that asphalt was when we first started? We keep trying to improve it.
Well, I guess they used the FIM paint too on the curbs. So
one of the riders, I think it was maybe Jake, said that the curbing was more grippy than the rest of it.
Really?
Yeah, the asphalt wasn't quite as grippy as the paint. So if you watch the race, you can see Jake clips a lot of curbs, even on his knee.
Yeah.
Going down towards that turn 11 through 13 area, whatever that 13, 14, 15 maybe. Down that what we call Lombard Street.
Lombard Street, yeah.
Yeah, I mean he would jump the curb on the inside on his knee, and then tap it again on the outside. So definitely the curbing had quite. If your suspension could take it, the curbing had a lot of grip.
Yeah, and there was some dust up stuff too. I mean, I did see that weird. I don't know what the hell was going on there. I was at Laguna, obviously, and I saw it on Motor America's Instagram. But Petrucci having a little love tap there with Flinders and Matt Skoltz.
Yeah, I think it was Matt more than anything. I mean, I know I've been bagging on Petrucci quite a bit, but I think on this one, I gotta say Matt probably provoked it a little bit.
Yeah?
Yeah, they were going back and forth in qualifying. You follow me, I follow you, and I guess Matt buzzed him. I don't know if he actually. Petrucci said he tapped him on that cool down lap. I think Matt just buzzed him. and just the whole back and forth thing. And Petrucci was having a bad day because his bike blew up earlier, and the previous day, and so he got upset and tapped into those guys and gave him the finger and did all that kind of stuff. And
bent Flinders' handlebar.
yeah, probably just spun it around. I can't imagine he actually bent it. If he did, and man, those are some crappy handlebars. But so it's right. So they gave him a 3-position penalty and a couple of smacks on the hand, and 2 what they call penalty points. If you get 4, you get to start in the back of the grid. At the next, so he's halfway to the back of the grid. But I got to say he was much more pleasant than he was in the past.
Yeah, I mean, I saw some pictures of him in the pits and stuff, and he looked like he had a smile on his face this time instead of a scowl.
No, don't get carried away. I don't think he was actually telling jokes and smiling.
I don't know. I mean, I did take a picture of him on the podium, and I shrunk it down, and I called him Captain Stink Face.
Yeah.
On the podium, he did have a stink face. But, he didn't like to lose.
Yeah, he paid us some compliments on the podium. He said that we're on a different level, blah blah blah, this and that, and he was going to try harder the next day. And then I think he was really happy to be able to, with all those red flags in race 1. I think he was really happy to be able to finish because he crashed, and nobody even saw him crash once again. He must have like the mystery crashes because nobody sees him crash. He just ends up picking himself up off the floor. It's like, oh, he crashed. But when Lewis crashed, the cameras were on him. But I guess he went and crashed in the chicane, tipped over, which probably wouldn't have been the end. Might have been the end. I think he broke the shift linkage or something like that. And so he lucked out. That would have been a 0 for him in race 1.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, he picked it up. His crew fixed it, and they were able to get that thing going again. And he scored and finished 3rd.
And Lewis's crash looked pretty. He looked like he smashed pretty hard. And
dude, I don't know what happened with Escalante and Lewis. Both those guys had big get-offs. Escalante was able to rejoin after the 3rd red flag.
Right.
I mean, what we did, 2 red flags or 3?
Yeah,
3 starts.
It was like 3 restarts for sure. And then
I was like, well, how many restarts are we gonna have?
Like our sprint races are 8 laps. So I was like, oh, look at that.
That's one thing I gotta be negative at Motor America about is they don't tell us how many laps till like they're blowing the minute one. They gotta be a lot smarter about announcing how many laps are remaining. Because we're all guessing, because they chopped the first one by 2. And we figured, okay, so that one went from 16 to 14. And then we went out and did basically the outlap again, the start, and then stopped. Like, okay, well, they're probably going to chop the next one by 2. But when you start adding the warm-up, like the parade lap and the warm-up lap, sighting lap, you end up with an extra 2 laps. And so I figured, okay, they're going to chop it by 2. Let's add a couple liters just to be safe. And it's no sooner do we do that, like, oh, we're going to do 8 laps.
Right.
Oh, great. Now we're going to finish with like 5 extra liters in the tank. Like the riders need to have all that extra weight,
Yeah, I mean, we
had
had
to be a little bit quicker about that.
We had some of that stuff too. I mean, we really tried hard to stretch the schedule and cram everything in that we possibly could. And, on Saturday, there was a couple of really healthy sized incidents. Let's just say that. And it caused some delays. And we had to basically tack the last 3 races on Saturday onto the Sunday schedule. And, not everybody was happy about that, but we had to do what we had to do to get all the races in. And, Sunday we had some additional incidents and we had to cut the pro start procedure for the Gold Cup race. And then the races after that were all 6 laps instead of 8. So it's typical club racer stuff, but I think Moto America also has TV stuff to deal with as well, right?
Yeah, that was the reason why they did what they did. Was, I guess the TV itself, and whatever. That's their deal. It didn't affect me. It didn't affect us at all. All 3 starts, both guys went out and rocked the first out lap, and they. Cam's learning really quick. He was able to learn again from Jake, following him around. His style is quite a bit different than Jake's. You know, the
Yeah,
whole pick up and
Jake,
throttle.
Jake is I would say borderline violent with the motorcycle, whereas Cam is like a surfer guy, you know?
Yeah, he's pretty smooth. Yeah, he's pretty flowing. So we're trying to get him to stop flowing as much and more full throttle, like we've been talking about the whole time.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, I would say Cam's more like a 600 rider, which might prove to be a good thing at Laguna.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think on the Suzuki last year, he finished 6 or 7 seconds back from Jake.
Right.
5 seconds back from Jake. So if you take how he's doing this year versus Suzuki last year, he might be right there. But for sure, Jake's going to pick it up, and I'm pretty certain Petrucci's going to go really good there with the Ducati.
Oh, for sure. I mean, that's the other track he knows.
Yeah. So, yeah, but they're going to have to do something with their engines, you know, because they're blowing them up.
It looks like they're having similar issues to what you guys had at Coda.
It's the exact same issue.
Yeah.
No, I have
the BMW guys too.
I have inside info. I mean, it's the exact same thing.
Really?
So yeah, I guess you can't run a world level engine on VP MGP. You know?
Wow.
That's what it is. I mean, I don't know what happened with that stuff. You know, in 18 or in 19 when we first got it, because it was Apex in 18, you know, the Sunoco Apex, and then 19 we got that fuel. It was pretty good. You know, we're all pretty happy about it. And then in 20, I just remember going back in my memory banks, and all of a sudden things kind of changed a little bit in 20. I'm not sure if the blend changed, if they change the blend every year, but they still fit within that framework of the rules.
Right.
But I remember having to mess with the fuel quite a bit in 20. We just chalked it up to, well, the model changed. It has a little bit different, the injector's a little bit different. So then in 21 was, again, remember we had that failure at Atlanta, very first race.
Yes.
And then Jake won after that and won 16 in a row, whatever it was.
Right.
And so that was a head scratcher too. We kind of said, okay, it might have been this, might have been that, might have been our lambda sensors, you know, or the electronics. It was probably that added to it. And then this year the Ducati's killing them, and then we killed them early on. But we got after it pretty quick with coming up with a configuration that worked with that fuel. But I mean, it is what it is. You know, Formula One went to E10. I don't know if I talked about that last go around, but you know, which is 10% ethanol, like you see E85 pumps and stuff like that. So a lot of the racing is going to be going to ethanol based fuel because politics, you know, all the politics crap, right?
Right.
You know, and by the way, whoever voted for a tax increase on gas was an idiot. And see what you got.
Right.
Like everybody in California. But anyway, back to ethanol fuels. Yeah, so there's a lot of politics going on in the FIM and FIA area. So I can see us going to large percentage of ethanol in our fuel, like 40%, let's say.
Wow.
Yeah, I think that's going to be coming pretty quick. So I think everyone's going to have to learn how to work with it.
Right. A lot of time on the dyno, yeah?
Well, I mean, you know, if you remember a little bit back, race gas was all leaded and open, right?
Right.
And then they said, okay, no more leaded gas. We're all going to race on unleaded. And people were freaking out at the time. So if we go ethanol based or quite a bit of ethanol in there, then I can see us having to change quite a bit.
Okay.
Yeah, so anyway, so that's unfortunate for the Ducatis. I mean, they're having the same problems, but you know, I'm sure they'll figure it out. They got a whole factory behind them, probably. You know, but they run a different fuel, and I heard that the shell fuel they use over there doubled in price.
Really?
Well, probably the components, right? The components are expensive, and it's probably hard to get. And with all these problems with fuel right now, you know, gasoline cost, I'm sure that's justified. Whereas the MGP isn't. I don't see a big hike. So are we just using pump gas? What's the deal?
Right. Yeah, I was using pump gas, but you know.
I'm sure our engines will last the same length of time with pump gas.
Right.
You know, so kind of disappointed with the whole deal there. But you know, it is what it is, and that's what we use, and got to learn how to work with it.
So, you know, there was something I saw both the guys doing I can't remember which session it was, but Jake had this a few laps in a row. He had this ridiculous high speed jump thing towards the end of that fast section before he crests the hill and goes back to first. And then obviously Cam spending a little bit of time in the dirt. So
yeah.
I mean, did you give Cam a dirt section button or?
Yeah, he had a lever, just like the ride height deals. He just flipped the lever and then, just like, when you ride a mountain bike and you got that lockout rear shock.
Yeah.
We have a little lockout for ours.
Yeah, there you go.
Guys that go off road and off reservation. Apparently, he left the whole track.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he blew by the fence and went up into the mountains there and decided to go squirrel hunting or something. I don't know. And,
I mean, I know a lot of the road cyclists are doing the gravel bike thing, but that's another level of gravel bike.
Yeah, he caught some air. I guess he missed a shift or didn't pull back on the lever hard enough to get in a first left-hander there, and decided to hit the eject button and went straight. And it didn't work out too good. But he didn't.
He didn't end up on the ground.
No,
I mean,
the thing was in the air. It was pretty.
Yeah. So he cleared the double. I mean, it looked like on the video
he cleared the air
double
fence
out there.
He cleared the air fence, he cleared the perimeter fence. Then he started going up the hill.
He's going to make a run to Starbucks
into the neighbor's yard. I don't know where the heck he was going. But we were joking that the cops are looking for him for riding without a license.
Yeah.
Outside the racetrack.
Oh man. And then, obviously Jake, I mean, is there the jump setting? I mean, God damn, that thing was high. He was all on it too, like motocross guy.
Yeah, he just stood on the peg. That's just the thing going a little sideways in a really fast section.
Mm-hmm.
But we have this thing in the software that actually catches it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's one nice thing about modern electronics. They're pretty safe. If that was old school, you'd be high-sided to the moon.
Right. That'd be
that thing came back in line to kind of bucked him up a little bit, and he just sat right back on it. Really didn't miss a beat. Didn't really even slow him down that much.
Yeah, it doesn't look like he even let off.
He didn't. he doesn't.
I bet you have data for that too, huh?
Oh, probably, but I have to find it.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, big spool up. I mean, there's a couple times, and what he does is he uses all the power of the bike that we give him, and then when we have moments like that, then we draw closer on, say, okay, we can pull a little bit out right there.
Right.
It's sliding or spinning enough. We can pull a little bit out, and we can do that. And then we'll go back and fix it. Marshall will fix it up, and then it won't happen the next outing.
So I got a couple of questions from people before we keep going about action. But Mark Keown asks, do you guys run more ETV opening at a track with a lot of time on the side of the tire, like the Ridge, versus a track with more elevation change, like Road Atlanta? The Ridge has quite a bit of elevation change too. I know you can't see it on the TV that
well.
Well,
the electronics are torque based, so we don't necessarily control the ETV directly. We just tell the engine we want this much torque in this section, and then we try to blend the torque from one gear to the other. So it has a table in the back end that says it produces this much torque at this RPM with this throttle opening. So then it goes through the gearbox and says, okay, for this particular gear, that particular gear, we have this much torque as the gearbox at the rear wheel. So then we try to blend the rear wheel torque from gear to gear to gear. So when you make a shift, it feels the same. So, and then there's a feature where if we change the final drive, like you go from let's just go big, from 1646 to 1643, let's say.
Right.
When you change the final drive, it'll actually compensate for that. So if you go taller, it'll open the throttle more on its own. So you can actually change gearing one tooth and not even feel it as a rider. The acceleration feels the same. What will be different is the shift points.
Okay.
And the total RPM for running out. So just an example, at Coda, we run really short gearing because the bike's straight up and down and going down those long straightaways. Even though it's a really high-speed track, we run really short gearing. At Atlanta, we run really tall gearing because the you have that kink on the back straightaway. So it's just like going through there in fifth when you're on the edge of the tire, going through there instead of sixth. So you have to run really tall gearing to make it think it's in sixth, right? So that track, the throttles are way open because the gearing's so tall. And versus Coda, where the throttles are much more shut, even though it's a high-speed straightaway. So because you're talking about acceleration, how much the tire can take. And the final gearbox, like I said, it goes through the torque the engine produces, and then you got the torque multiplier, the gearbox, and that goes the tire. And so we control how much torque is in the tire, not necessarily what is at the engine. So that's all calculated out in the back end.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, if you want to get into the nitty gritty of it.
That's like very nitty gritty. Jesus.
Well, I mean, you can replay this if you want to try to understand it.
Yes.
That's the way it runs. That's pretty cool. You know, it makes it easy for us too, because we just say, oh, a little more here, a little more there, and it doesn't matter what the final drive is and all that. We're actually looking at the end result, which is how much are we putting into the tire.
Okay. Well, Andrew Pettis asked, how both of the attack riders could benefit from using the clutch entering the corners when they have auto blip and quick shifter and all the fancy electronics.
They don't use a clutch at all.
There you go.
Ever. As a matter of fact, we were talking about that. They're so used to not even touching the clutch after the start. I mean, the clutch is working because it's slipping. The shooter clutch, it's slipping on the entry. So going into the corner, it's working, but exiting the corner, I mean, that kind of stuff, you never do it. It's not a motocross bike, so you're not trying to shock the thing into doing whatever it does. It just does what it does. And so the clutch is slipping going in slightly to combat some of the chatter, but for the most part, it never gets touched. So for that little off course, off reservation excursion that Cameron had, if he would have actually used the clutch, he probably would have got it back one gear easily. So I told the guys, how about thinking about the clutch whenever he jumps out of gear? You don't have to, if you run off straight, you're still back in that gear again, because the way the blipper works, if the thing goes to idle, it won't blip. You know what I mean? So if it jumps out of gear, it goes into neutral, and the thing goes to some kind of high idle, it won't blip. So it'll never go back in that next gear again.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but if you use the clutch, you can plunk it in there.
That makes sense.
I don't know if I explained his thing, but there you go. Okay.
So Ty Bankford, he's our frequent poster asking for a ride guy. And he wants me to let you know that he beat me in one of the races. So it's time for that Superbike ride opportunity.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think maybe this Greg White could be up there too, and probably another few hundred people. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
I heard you had a good fight with the owner professionally, no? One of the owners.
Yeah, I actually, you know what? I wrote it in the CRA press release about, passing somebody into the corkscrew was a dream. That somebody was Thomas from Pressuline.
Yeah, he stopped by today.
Passing the corkscrew.
Yeah, he stopped by today, drop his bike off. I guess he wants a Superbike engine or whatever, but I guess he wasn't pissed off at you.
No, not at all.
He was an aggressive but good move or something like that.
He says he wants a rematch. So I'm like, bring it on, buddy. It was a good time.
Maybe this time you'll use some proper cork springs and some good valving in your corks.
I'm sure. I'm bringing the bike down next week, so I'm sure you guys will have a look.
Yeah, we can talk about that.
I did break one of those 3D printed potentiometer brackets. So Joseph was like, "Yeah, let's throw that in the trash." And
those things are like being held on by like 3mm screws or something. They're pretty hokey.
Yeah. But they worked, for a little bit.
Yeah, we'll get you some real stuff.
Yeah. So the data stuff is really key, man. Like seeing what's going on. Joseph noticed that the bike was running lean and added some fuel. So
cool.
Pretty cool to be able to do that on the fly like that.
Yeah, no, data is very important. I mean, Junior Cup has data.
Yeah, they do.
I'm not
Yeah,
sure if everyone knows what they're looking at, but they have enough information there. They can learn.
Oh, so Matty Testa is responding that he and I both beat Ty in the Superbike race. So he wants to know if he could get a ride for at least this session.
Yeah, we'll have the Grand Prix of Huntington Beach. Everyone will do a lap around the shop.
There you go. Sorry, Matt. And then Joseph Sfume says his auto blip broke, and he had a big problem actually finishing a lap without feeling like he was going to blow through every corner trying to backshift.
Yeah. Everybody's got to go back and learn how to auto blip with their hand.
Yeah. I mean, the Yamaha guys at corporate for a while were calling me needy bitch, right? Because I said that, but you've called me similar things, but I don't want to ride bikes.
Maybe without the needy part.
God damn it. You just always slip it in there, right? Like, just
what are we talking about?
Yeah. So, I don't want to ride bike.
Take out the needy part. Is that less of an insult?
Not really. Not really.
Right.
Wow. So this is how we are out the shop too, everybody, if you don't realize this. But so I don't want to ride bikes without auto blipper anymore. It's just, I always thought I was good at it too, but man, since auto blippers come out, it's like, nah.
Yeah, my car is one of the last sticks, and even though it's a turbo and it's fast and it's like a go-kart, it's still pretty difficult getting a corner, trying to heel and toe and blip the thing manually and all that stuff. So I can see on a road race bike, modern road race bike, so much stuff is happening so quick that you're just gonna be behind the times if you don't have all that stuff working properly.
And then Lieutenant Dan has legs. Wow, that's a username and a half.
Maybe he's a good runner.
Yeah. Well, it's from Forrest Gump, apparently.
Oh.
But what methodology or process can a mediocre expert club racer take to track days or practice days to improve their riding most effectively? What lessons from your test days can I take to my quote program?
What? What do you say?
He wants to know what process that you can take to track days or practice days to improve the riding most effectively.
What process?
Yeah.
There's a number of things going on at the same time when we go out and test. We work on the rider, we work on the chassis, we work on electronics, we work on various things we test. So only on the rider end of it? Or
only on the rider end of it.
I'm talking about the motorcycle part of it.
I'm not sure what he's saying.
I would be more. That's a really broad. That's why I was like, "Where's the specific part of that?" Question, because it's a really broad question. There's a lot of things to work on. I guess I would break it down. I'd look after what is the weakest point. Most of the time we get more out of the rider than we do fiddling with the chassis. To be perfectly honest with you, we have a pretty well balanced bike. Sometime through the last weekend, Cameron said the grip wasn't all that good, and then he went and changed his style up a bit to try to match what Jake was doing on the data, and didn't complain about the grip again. So sometimes the way you load the bike, sometimes the way you do different things, affects how the chassis works. So I would start by working on the riding. Just do as many laps as you can until you find a weakness, and then work on that. Normally, the way we used to approach a weekend was we'll go out and try to maximize the rear grip, and then we'll make the front end turn after that, because acceleration on a big bike is everything, and that's what we're working on with Cameron is working on acceleration. And you could see it in the opening laps of all three of those starts. I mean, those guys going up that hill.
Yeah.
Turn 3, 4 area, whatever you call that area right there. I mean, they just left everyone. It'd be like 10, 12 bike lengths just on the start.
Yeah.
A full second in the opening lap. And so that working on the grip and being comfortable with the acceleration of the bike and being a little more patient going through the corner and learning that charging the corners is a good lap time. But I mean, if you're totally weak like you going in the corner, then that'll be a lap time deficit as well.
Right.
So I don't know exactly what part of it he's talking about, but
yeah, he was saying if you were his crew chief, what would he do? What would he need to do?
If I was his crew chief, I'd have to find out what his weaknesses were and with his style or whatever he's doing, and we'll look at the data and see where he's weak. Work on that. So you have to have we have a test plan every time we go testing.
Yeah.
And luckily we work with professional riders that have a certain level already. And sometimes all we have to do is fine tune them to work with our bike or bring the bike a little closer to them. So we always run down this list of things that we've already planned to do. So we'll run down that list. Okay, we're going to try this shock. We're going to try this steering head angle. We're going to try this offset. We're going to try this linkage, after the rider warms up. And if we see something wrong with the rider himself, then we'll point that out too. Like, hey, we've changed all these things and the lap time's not changing. So obviously it's you.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about race 2. I mean, obviously Jake kind of got away there. I mean, he was gone. History. See you later.
Yeah. Yeah. For whatever reason, it just didn't click race 2 with Cameron. I think maybe we tried some stuff and it just didn't feel as good as the previous day, or the temperature came up. Something was up. He didn't go quite as fast as he did in race 1. Maybe some of it was, when all those plus zeros with Petrucci right there for all those opening laps.
Right.
Start making you ride a bit defensive, especially if you can hear that Ducati behind you.
Yeah.
And so that might have affected his lap time. He said he did end up with some kind of vibration, like a chatter almost, which we couldn't really see in the data, but it looks like maybe a little bit of front chatter. So don't know if we got maybe a gnarly tire, in race 2, like a front tire wasn't that good. It happens sometimes and you just can't do the pace. So we still haven't figured out why you couldn't do it. But yeah, Jake was on a roll. He was, every minute he spends on the racetrack, he's trying to fine tune how he rides, right?
Yeah.
A lot of his lap time comes from him learning how and being comfortable on a motorcycle, not necessarily, we're throwing all this stuff at it. Because if you look at the bike from when we unload to when we put it away, it's not super different.
So he has this ability from the jump, right off the bat. Even when we were at testing at Buttonwillow, right? I mean, he'll go out. The first lap out is ridiculous.
Well, the Yamaha is really good at going from track to track to track.
Okay.
I got to say about this bike, it isn't a track-specific motorcycle. There might be some tracks a little better for it than others, like turning tracks, elevation tracks, things like that. The chassis handles really well. So it's really easy to go out and go fast straight away on it. If you have a horsepower deficit, or if you're the hot shit on the block with the horsepower, it doesn't seem to make a bunch of difference. It's the fact that as soon as you take it out of the truck, it's good to race. It's good to ride. The guys are comfortable on it. I never hear, I'm uncomfortable, I can't do that, I can't ride it like that. I never hear that from either rider. We're always looking for some little tiny thing. Like, at the beginning of the year, we started some new front end geometry that took them a couple of rounds. Even though they were super comfortable with it at Buttonwillow, they said it was great. We had to get to Coda and Atlanta before those guys really felt strong enough to go super fast with it, So, keeping a consistent motorcycle under them. If we went and tested a ridge, we don't necessarily say, okay, that's what it is. You go to if you did 4 or 5 rounds after that, we'll show up with what we finished the last one with, chassis wise, and just know that, okay, hey, we're at ridge, and it's you're going to be climbing on the gas, and you're going to be braking downhill. So you're going to have to control the pitch of the bike a little bit better than you did the last racetrack. So we might go up on spring rates front and back.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, or preloads or damping or something to balance the bike. Because, again, we talk about the balance of forces, right? Newton's 3 laws.
So would that be similar setup than when you guys go to Laguna Seca?
Yeah, Laguna's got its own little things. It's got some flat corners, right? And it's got some climbing. and it's got some G outs. So it's very similar. It's a little bit different though, because Ridge has got a lot of those first gear acceleration.
Right.
Laguna's only really has one first gear acceleration. So Laguna is more flowing than Ridge, even though Ridge looks like it's all turning, but Ridge you're kind of snapping it up, accelerating next corner, braking and turning and snapping it up again, accelerating. So so it's a little bit of a different animal, even though it's up and down hills. That's about all you can say about it.
So to add to our discussion before, first of all, Lieutenant Dan, that guy, says that's exactly kind of the answer he was looking for. And then Matt Testa says again, he's like, getting back to the chassis discussion with the front end. You mentioned that I went the wrong direction, but apparently
I know you went the wrong direction.
He apparently went the same direction, softer springs, slightly more preload based on the data.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no.
Okay.
Not Laguna with turn 2.
And he says, and it was the same thing with mine too. We were using 115 millimeters of the 130 millimeter travel. And what's the best approach to make the correct change? After a softer spring, the bike got into the corner better. Or me too. Like it felt like it got into the corner better.
Well, there's multiple ways. There's multiple ways to get in the corner.
Okay.
So you could run. Every fork's got. If you put in let's say you're at 9s, you put 11s in there. Now that means that you're going to have more force at the bottom of the stroke when you're on the brakes. Doesn't mean that it's necessarily not going to get in the corner. You could take preload out and still have the same geometry mid-corner.
Okay.
You can have the fork more progressive so you can attack things like turn 2.
Okay.
You follow what I'm saying? Or even turn 6 is a little bit of uphill braking kind of thing, So you might be using some more force there. And so it doesn't mean that you're going to give up the middle of the corner just because you affect something for the braking area. Or you can even play with how the air spring, which is raising or lowering your oil level to make all that combination come together.
Okay.
But softer springs, I don't think is going to, at least as soft as you guys went, I don't think is going to be the hot ticket for getting you to brake into turn 2 effectively.
Okay.
I would venture to say you guys are probably rolling through the corners, not braking super hard at 2. So softer setup would feel better if you were just cruising from corner to corner and not braking or trail braking into every corner. I mean, I'm just telling you what it is.
Okay.
If you're comparing, what a 23-1, to a 31 something, you know what I'm saying?
Right. Okay. Fair enough. Definitely not. Neither of us are getting a contract from you to ride Superbike.
Not unless you're going to ride a pair of 11 springs in a turn 2.
Oh man, so funny. Okay, so there's quite a few more. Man, the questions are starting to come in now. Okay, how often do the guys use rear brakes? I think I was telling you before, right? Like Top Rack has that thumb brake now.
Yeah.
I think most of them have the hand brake for the rear.
Yeah.
But Top Rack's still using that thumb brake thing. And I don't think either of your riders are even using the rear brake anymore, are they?
Jake's got some limited amount of pressure he can put on the rear.
Mm-hmm.
And Cameron uses it only when he's in trouble.
Okay.
Yeah, so hardly, almost not at all, because we have pretty good control over the engine braking. So we can slow the bike down pretty good with the engine brake.
Okay.
Top Rack is on almost another level again.
Yeah.
So it may be that they can't do with electronics what he's looking for, or maybe they can, or maybe he's more comfortable doing it himself. And maybe he doesn't use it all the time. Maybe he uses it in corners where he needs to assist it a little bit. You follow what I'm saying? Like sometimes you get into certain corners where the engine brake, the throttles are closed and you just can't get enough and the clutch is open. So you may have to help it along a little bit. Yeah,
Well, I
but
watched that.
if the rear tire is off the ground, the rear brake's pretty much ineffective. So he's not using it when he's braking because he's usually braking with the rear tire off the ground.
Well, I was watching that video that I sent you of the team principal talking about the bike,
Yeah.
and the guy was speaking about Top Rack in similar fashion that I've heard you say about Jake and Cam. Mostly
Right.
Jake, because Jake's so hard on the equipment. You're like, oh yeah, the clutches are gone. The brake pads are gone.
No. I think we've gotten a lot better with the clutch.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, Jake's been really, really nice to clutch. I mean, his starts are really good, and he doesn't, put it against the limiter and just slide the thing all the way to turn one anymore. He kind of lets it out.
Okay.
So we've definitely defeated the whole clutch thing. He does out of habit get to that rear brake a lot, so that's why we have to pull back some of his pressure, help him out a bit. But he uses it a lot more than I guess you should on certain different areas of the racetrack where you don't need to use it.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah. So we limit the amount of pressure going to the rear brake.
And then let's see. Joe Sfium says that Sylvain Gintoli won a World Superbike title without using the rear brake in 2014, and that's all he says that's all he needs to be told about using the rear brake.
Yeah, he had a whole. If you watch him on YouTube, he had a whole thing on use of the brakes, use of the rear brakes. He goes, "I have a little secret. I never touched it in World Superbike."
Right.
He talks about using the rear brake, settling the rear as he tipped in, because on the MotoGP bike he wouldn't even touch it on the initial. He would touch it on the initial part before the rear tire came off the ground, like front and rear equally, and then he would release for the front tire come off the ground, or the rear tire come off the ground, and would have very little, frictional force. And then as he tipped in and the rear settled, he would touch it again to get the bike to hook the corner. And then as he got on throttle, he would release. So that's kind of some tricky thing you got to do. I'm fairly certain we can get all that accomplished pretty regularly with just our engine braking strategy. The whole deal that he was talking about. So I think as electronics get better and better and better, and everyone gets a better handle on them, then you probably don't need to try to bandage it with a manual operation, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
It's the same. It's the reverse part of trying to control all the torque with your hand. When you're accelerating, it takes a lot more effort, a lot more concentration. It's easier to do it with electronics repetitively every single lap, every corner. If you have a good number of guys, I mean, Marshall's sitting there plucking away at that thing, the whole time we're there.
He's probably plugged in now.
He might be. He looks at the stuff all the time. We were discussing Laguna Seca yesterday.
Yeah.
And the various, like Cameron Bobier's 23-1 in the race.
Right.
And how can we get there? Because we didn't do that last year.
Well, last year the track, it was like something was up with the track last year, right? It was like,
how was it when you guys were there?
Temperature swing, something.
Yeah, something didn't jive. I don't know if somebody else got on it, and something didn't jive, and the grip was down. And I think all we did was 24s. I don't think we even did any 23s. I have to go back and look at the data. But I mean, Cam Bobier did a 23-1 in the race, riding by himself.
Right.
Yeah. Right. So we're looking at how can we get back to that lap time at Laguna Seca. So we're talking about that a bit. So yeah, to make a long story short, Marshall's into that thing all the time, and knowing what's happening in every single corner and dissecting it and working on it nonstop. I think that's where you get the reliability and less use of that rear brake.
So Steven Eisenhower wants to know, like, what's going on with Matt?
Matt who?
Skultz.
Skultz?
Yeah, he looked like he wasn't firing on all four this weekend. He wasn't in the front.
If you look at what he did last year versus this year, I'd say he made a big step forward.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Oh, he was nowhere to be found last year. He was back there in the weeds. I think he was off the reservation with Cameron Peterson, the girls. Because he was. I mean, Jake was just minding his own business and just watching his lap times and his gap towards the last little bit. But I think Matt was one of the faster guys on the racetrack at the end there. in race 2. He just didn't get off the line very good for whatever reason. His opening laps were kind of weak, but the rest of them were pretty good. You know, I know that Petrucci was probably playing a lot of blocking with Cam Peterson on his back, you know,
Yeah.
and so those guys didn't go that quick, you know, in race 2. But I'd say if you had to line them up at the end of the race, it was Jake was fastest, and Matt Schultz was probably second fastest, and then it came the next 2 guys pretty equal, you know, Petrucci and Peterson. Yeah, so I don't think he was all that bad, not in race 2. But they do have a new data guy too, so and he's you know, Vito, really great guy. From Morelli. He's doing the electronics now, and so he's playing a little bit of catch up because he kind of jumped into mid-season with both feet. You know,
I tried to poke Chuck when I had him on a few weeks ago.
Oh, Chuck was Mr. I think he smoked something before he got on your show because everything was love and friendship, and I know everyone. They're all great guys. And 2 hours of that, man, it was hard to bear.
Yeah, I tried
the truth. What is all this love stuff? No, they had some issues. Their other data guy, which I knew, he worked for our team. He was a good guy, you know. But I guess it wasn't gelling or something was happening. And as they brought Vito in from Morelli, and you know, Vito, he's been doing like car stuff for the last year, so he had to jump into it. And Vito's a really great guy too. He was working with Gerloff for a couple of years on the factory team, and he's got a lot of experience. I mean, the guy's got tons of experience. Really smart guy. So I'm sure they're gonna figure it out, and they're gonna go a lot faster in Laguna.
Okay. So Tim P wants to know, in your opinion, since we know you're a pretty honest dude, how
I'm lying to you the whole time. So
you don't have any other way.
Yeah.
How is Cam meeting your expectations?
Really good. I think he's a little bummed out himself when he doesn't get that close to Jake. But if you measure where he's at in relation to Jake, he's a lot closer to the front guy than Jake was with Cam Beaubier.
Right.
You know, so a lot closer to Jake than the other guy we had last year, which goes unmentioned.
We just have to go there, right? Like,
I'm not mentioning it.
Little disclaimer, right?
Yeah. I'm just comparing. Somebody asked the question.
For sure. Yeah, that's absolutely correct.
Yeah, so I'm happy with Cam. You know, I think he's a little hard on himself. I'd say everybody who wants to win is like that. You know, but he's not super happy with third. I think a couple of 1-2s have been okay. I think he's okay with Jake beating him because Jake's champion, you know. But I think by the end of the season, he wants to get a couple more wins in for sure.
Yeah, and everybody's telling us to tell you how you really feel about that other guy, who I'm not going to mention his name.
No, we're over that.
We've already done that, dude. Like, watch a couple of episodes back, you'll know.
Yeah, I think that'll work.
You know? And then Tim P also says, you know, he says he doesn't think the Ridge is a good racetrack.
It's fine. It's different. I think everybody had fun there. You know, I mean, you didn't hear Petrucci complaining about it, right?
No. I mean, I'm just curious. I've heard a lot of people saying that they want, you know, like they want to get rid of the chicane and just have you guys go all the way into turn 1 down the straight.
Yeah, considering how little property those guys have, and I think we'd be in those trees, like we were at Brainerd when somebody crashed out in the trees out there when we went straight into turn 1. I don't think it'd be too fast.
I mean, even the club guys. I mean, I've heard the club guys are at like 180 mile an hour there.
Yeah, I don't know. You'd have to triple up the air fence. Yeah, I just don't think there's enough runoff out there, and there's some pretty big obstacles to get to.
Yeah. There's a lot of wilderness out there. I mean, you know, when we went there for a couple of years ago, I mean, that was the shocker how close the tree line is. And I'm like, man, we were cooking in here. Like,
yeah, you don't want to go so far you get into that correctional facility that's like a mile down the road or something.
Yeah, yeah.
out in the trees.
There might be a convenience store on the corner or something where you could get to, you get out there.
Yeah, the only negative about Ridge is there's just not a lot around. So you got to
Right.
go all the way. It's like a half-hour drive every day to go to Olympia or wherever for a hotel room.
Yeah.
So there's not a lot around, and so I think it's a little bit too far the beaten path for the spectators. But I think it makes for some decent racing. It's a bit harder to pass too, so I think some of the other classes had some good racing.
Yeah. I mean, the announcer guys were talking about it too. I mean, there's not a whole lot of places to crash, to pass people because just the nature of the way the track flows.
Yeah.
You gotta kind of be in that right spot, that first gear thing at the very top at the end of the fast section. Like if I saw quite a few passes there.
Yeah.
On the brakes kind of stuff, but not,
You're not going to do it on the gas. You're not going to get a better run than someone. You're going to have to make a move on the brakes somewhere.
Right.
And it's difficult. I like Petrucci, his bike was turning really good on and holding in tight lines. So I knew he was going to be really strong on the brakes. He is anyway.
Oh, wow. Looks like, wow, there's more commenters. Okay. So let's see. Brian Green wants to know, what factors do you use to hire a rider besides how fast he is?
I don't hire the riders. Yamaha does.
That's a good answer. Why did I know that was coming?
Well, I mean, but I can tell you what our recommendations, like what I like. I like a little bit of harmony in the pits and aggression on the racetrack. Like I don't need a rider that sucks on the racetrack and is an ass off the bike. It just brings the whole team down. So one of the things is that the chemistry is important.
Okay.
So that pops them up a little bit, and then of course the talent, the desire, how driven they are, the talent level and what their skill level is. The skill level is probably one of the lower things for a new guy because you can always teach them.
Okay.
But the talent's fairly important and the desire is super important. And the personality, I think, is important because it's like you're going to be married to the dude for a year or two,
Right.
Yeah. So you might as well get along.
So Brian also asked, he basically says that he met Jake and Cam both and was so impressed with how gracious they were with their time with the fans. And it's super impressive for any pro athlete to be like that. And you can't say enough good things about both riders. So.
No, I think there's a lot of harmony in the pit right now. So we'll see. We'll see if Cameron starts beating Jake, if that goes away. But I don't think so. I think it's going to be like that. I think that's the way those guys are.
Okay, so then the other thing, Chris McGuire from CT Racing, he's the Northern California Pirelli guy.
Yeah.
He says, with foggy conditions at Laguna for practice or qualifying, do you turn the TC down for your riders with mixed weather conditions?
No.
Okay.
Just like I don't put softer springs on, we're not using the stroke.
Oh, man. I'm never going to hear the end of that. At least I beat Thomas because I know I would never hear the end.
I don't know what he means by turn down.
Like turn.
Does he mean like less TC?
More restrictive, probably.
Is that what he means? More restrictive?
Yeah.
When somebody says turn down TC, we always think turn down the amount of cut.
Okay.
Or turn down the power. Which one is it? So if he means more restrictive, yes, but it's a different kind of restrictive.
Okay.
So you would generally add more, and all the top teams should already know this. You generally add more to the top of the tire, not just on the edge. So more linear. So most of these setups they reduce TC as you pick up the bike, and you have like a meat of a TC right where you're trying to spin the tire, just so it doesn't go too far out. So let's say you have less on the edge, the most about the meat when you're going full throttle, and then almost nothing when you're straight up and down. So the part where you get in trouble and when it's like these weird conditions is when you go from the really hard amount of cut to nothing or very little. And that's when the guys will crash, or get scared, get a big spin up or something like that. So it's more linear, let's call it, from edge to all the way to the top of the tire.
Okay. Yeah, more questions are flowing in. Testa wants to know, can you explain the
You
advantage?
guys already asked a few questions. Next.
Yeah, well, the shock linkage. He
Yeah.
wants to know, like, what's the advantage to upgrading the rear shock linkage?
In 18, we ran around with basically a stock link with Heron, and he really liked it. But we had to make the shock and everything work for it.
Okay.
So the advantage, there's a number of things. I mean, it's just such a broad question, just like where do I start with my training program? It depends on the bike, and some bikes are real prone to squatting. And of course, that's controlled by the swing arm pivot location. So you may need more force at the bottom of the stroke. Depends on what kind of track you're on, what the G outs are like. And if you're making your swing arm longer, you're going to lose some of the leverage. So you may want to increase the start ratio on the linkage. So some linkages increase the start ratio. They might be more linear or less linear. They might have a bowl shape to them, hyperbola, parabola shape. You never know. Depends on what the bike's doing and the character of that particular motorcycle. That's why you can't, like you see a BMW or a Yamaha or a Suzuki or the Ducati, you look at them, all those things are going to be all different because the way the bike produces power, where the pivot is. So the linkage is part of that whole program. It's like saying, where do I put my clickers, And it's always a little different based on who's riding it, where you're riding it, and all that kind of stuff. So we have probably 3 different linkages for our bike, right about that.
Mm-hmm.
And we pretty much stick with one at all the racetracks, and because it works, and we make very small incremental changes to our bike. I don't know if that answers anything, but
well, I'm sure he'll comment if that doesn't
need more input,
So I've got a couple of questions from different people about the Junior Cup. Apparently, I don't know anything about it because I didn't watch Junior Cup this weekend.
Ninja Cup.
Busy. Yeah, the Ninja Cup. So there's three people, Corey Zorn, Joe Block, and Joe Sfium. And, he says, what do you think of cheating in the Junior Cup with the engine being 2cc bigger? How big of an advantage is this? And then the next guy, hang on just a second. So the next guy says, what do you think of the Track Day Junkies Unleashed Ninja 400 Junior Cup? Tell us your opinion of the Sportbike track gear and Brian Van. And then the last guy says, nobody in Junior Cup had 402 cc's. It was a decked block, so the compression was raised. So
yeah, I heard Brian had an illegal engine at one point.
Okay.
I don't know. Brian's a good guy. He buys our product. He sells it.
Yeah.
I don't know that much unfortunately, about Junior Cup. I mean, I got my head so far into what we're doing and keeping our program going in the right direction that, the rules are the rules. So if they make the rules and somebody violates them, they should be punished for it. If it's an overboard, that's a pretty clear thing, but 2 cc's, I don't know what that means. I don't know how you can get 2 cc's, make the hole a little bit bigger.
Yeah, the guy did come back, said he looked it up and he was wrong with the engine side thing.
Yeah, so they I don't know what the rules are even in Junior Cup. They're not allowed to deck the head. I
have no idea.
Yeah, so it's hard for me to comment on that. It's like asking me about the size of the bags for the bagger class. Because apparently
how many 12 packs of Diet Coors can you fit?
Yeah, I don't know what the size of the bag rules are. I'm sure there's some rule about lean angle and bag size and how much volume you have to have in the bag. I'm sure there's some rule like that. It's just not my cup of tea.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
Okay, so and then Chris McCreary wants to know, what was your main reason for starting a race team? I think we talked about that 2 years ago, but attack performance or just to see if you could tune or build a bike better than the other people?
All the above, I guess. I've been involved in motorcycles since high school and liking them since before then. So everyone kind of tries to gravitate towards what they like, whether it's who you date or what you work on,
Right.
I don't want to be miserable at work, so this is what I do. Now I'm miserable with Superbikes.
What? You're not miserable with Superbikes.
It could be a miserable situation sometimes, you know. But,
Yeah.
no, but that's the fun part, though. It's like if it's all like I said before, when we're winning all those races with Cam Bobier, and there was nobody around in P2 to even give us any stress, or the same as last year, it gets to be pretty boring. So when you have some challenging moments, you have the lows and the highs. That's what gets the adrenaline going. That's what makes the fun happen.
Right.
So that's why I always said, the Bobby Scheck and the BMW guys, I welcome the fact that those guys are there with their Ducatis and BMWs and Suzukis and all that kind of stuff. As a matter of fact, if I can digress a bit, one thing we didn't talk about was we started. We're on the infancy of starting an owners group for Superbike.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so we had our first meeting at Ridge, and it's basically all team owners and managers only, no riders with their lopsided opinions. But and the whole idea behind that is to maybe help advise Motor America with regards to rules and some of the procedures and things like that. But more importantly, to do some joint testing, maybe come up with some block purchases on hotels to save some costs there for the different guys for the longevity of the sport.
Right.
So kind of a pretty cool thing, to have owners groups in other sports. And so hopefully it takes off and it goes well. I mean, the Ulriches are into it. The Bobby from HSBK is into it. The big guys are, and then Westby guys, us, a number of different full-time players that will be part of this group. Yeah,
Well,
so we're working on that.
That kind of leads into the next question. James Roy asked this, with the economy going the way it is.
Yeah.
What do you think that will have with regards to the impact on racing?
I don't know if it'll impact it much. I mean, I know that we'll have to change strategies a little bit. Like, for instance, diesel fuel has doubled. Maybe it's going to go triple pretty soon. I mean, it costs probably about $1,200 a fill for our semi. And when it used to cost somewhere around $500 a fill, $600 a fill.
Right.
So for sure it's doubled. We'll send the truck from track to track a little more and a little less working at the shop, versus working at the track. So you maximize your time, be a little more efficient, that type of stuff. When you have the budget gets sliced up a certain way, you have to kind of try to find some space somewhere else.
Right.
And, with regards to that, trying to make all the teams a little more efficient by kind of pooling our resources. I think that helps too.
Well, I will tell you this, the guy from Titler's, I shared a garage with him.
Yeah, he wasn't in that meeting, so I figured he wasn't.
Yeah.
He was somewhere else.
Michael Kiley, very nice guy,
never met him.
Very switched on with the racing program, seems to be a big fan of what you guys are doing. And, he's got a couple of good riders over there, and they're still kind of early in their development, but the guy,
though.
Yeah,
they've already been on the podium a couple times, right? So they're pretty impressive with how quickly they've got that program going. Yeah,
so he was there with the privateer guy, Stefano Mesa, testing some electric stuff. So, I mean, do you think that? I mean, it still seems like it's a pretty far out yet because the bikes are still pretty heavy, but they're advancing in technology pretty quick. In that,
the problem there is, I mean, if you watch or know a little bit about FIA, not FIM, and the Formula One rules and where they're going with it, they're going more ethanol based, a little more green. Now they're complaining, or they've changed the rule already, where they can't use their tire warmers at the same temperatures they did before. They've gone from 100 C to an average of about 70 C. I don't remember the exact rule. 580 or 70, both. I can't remember what it is. They're trying to eliminate how much drain is on the grid when those guys all show up. So can you imagine what electric bikes would do to that? Warmers and because now, talking to Scott Smart, World Superbike, I was talking to him about these FIA rules, if it's going to carry over to FIM. And he was like, yeah, pretty much. They're already testing ethanol-based fuels. So that might be down the pipe. They're probably going to jump right past E10 to something more, a higher percentage of ethanol. And yeah, the tire warmer thing, he was throwing all kinds of ideas, like how can we maintain the tire? They show up and they got, I think, 11 tires that allowed to have a heater at the same time. It's not like here where you're warming up your 2 tires. Maybe you got another one on the warmer just in case that one goes flat or something.
Right.
These guys are heating up 11 tires plus what's on the bikes. Because imagine all that stuff running at the same time, how much they're drawing, every single team.
Yeah.
So that's pretty hard on the grid. Can you imagine if they're doing that with electric bikes too, trying to charge batteries fast?
Right.
I think that's pretty, I know what an electric car draws at a house. It's a pretty crazy amount, they'll triple your electrical bill. So I don't know what the answer is to that. They're gonna have to upgrade the grid.
Yeah. Upgrade the grid. And then, man, there's got to be a way for them to figure out a way to make the bikes lighter, because they're still 600 pounds. Right?
Yeah, well, that's the challenge of those electric motors, right?
Yeah.
Morelli makes an F1 motor. Talking to Vito a few years back, and the one that they use on the Formula cars, they make like 200 horsepower and things like this big. So it's possible. It just, you'd have to have that whole battery pack to go with it.
Right.
So there's more weight.
Here's another question, and I know the answer is no because that bike is out of production. But Johnny Simbroska, he wants to know: could there be a spec R6 race series in America? Rear shock setup, ride height, preload, spring rates, etc. Where do you start, and then where does it end? And then the last thing is, what are your top 3?
I wouldn't necessarily count the R6 out quite yet.
Oh.
Because I think there's still a lot of demand for that thing. So it's up to the. I don't think they're gonna let it die that easily. But a spec series, I don't think that's gonna happen.
Okay.
And
he also says he wants to know, what are your top 2 to 3 restaurants in Monterey?
I could
probably take that one.
I like that Hawaiian joint that Will sent us to.
Yeah?
What the hell is it called? It's right there in Monterey.
Dude, I can't remember the Hawaiian.
Will knows it. And yeah, that place is pretty good. It's always crowded. That's one of them. There's a few. You probably know better places than I do.
The Sardine Factory. The Sardine Factory is a great place to go.
Yeah, we always go to that Hawaiian joint.
All right. So, pretty much hats off, right? Like the race weekend was all about hats off.
Yeah, I know Jake did a great job. I think he's on a roll. I think Laguna is going to be a bit more of a challenge.
Okay.
Remember last year, Baz was right there.
Mm-hmm.
He was hanging out with Jake for the whole race. So we're definitely going to have to find something. I think Petrucci is a little bit of a better rider than Baz, or a stronger rider.
Yes.
The team's a little bit more, got more info.
All right.
So I think they're a lot closer than Baz was.
Okay.
And yeah, it might be a challenging weekend. We'll have to see how it goes. We'll unload the trucks.
Got any fancy new attack performance trickery up your sleeve for the boys?
Yes. Always.
That's all you're gonna say? You're not gonna say what?
No, of course not. Come on. It'll just be part of the behind the scenes stuff that happens.
All right. Maybe we'll talk about it after Laguna.
Sure.
So, do you have any? You want to talk about? We did this before when it was Cam Bobier and Jake.
Yeah.
We did an overlay between the two in the Lombard Street area.
Okay.
I'm wondering if you did the same for them this weekend.
Do that. Yeah. And do you want to see the Cameron running off the racetrack?
Yeah, I want to see what he did to the suspension when he cleared that double out there.
Okay, let me see if I can bring it up. You got any more questions you can ask in the meantime while I'm trying to find it?
Let's see. There's more. Oh, Chris McGuire says the restaurant that you like is called Hula's.
Hula's, yes, that's the place.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then while we're talking about that, you know what? There's a bunch of people keeping talking about it, about the race weekend. And I kind of knew this was coming, but, you know, the CRA, we had a little bit of drama in the American Iron class.
Yeah, if I don't want to get me started on all that stuff.
Oh, I know. I know it's not your favorite subject, but basically, what was said wasn't true. If you look at the results press release, you can see the dude on the Yamaha won the thing. You know, we didn't cancel anybody, we didn't DQ anybody, but you know, the guy that won did expose kind of a hole in our rules there. It wasn't quite clear, even though it was clear enough for us to give him the win, but it was also, we saw the other side as well. So, you know, I know that the club's going to make some adjustments to that moving forward, so we avoid confusion like that again. And we're also, you know, because we're brand new, you know, we can make adjustments like that on the fly. Basically, it's like, oh shit, that didn't work. So we're actually going to go and look at the rest of the classes too, to try to make sure there's no holes there either, that somebody can come in and try to exploit them too. So that's about that.
I mean, that's what happens when you're trying to match up a bunch of really different motorcycles.
Yeah.
You know, same kind of things that, you know, World Supersport and Supersport in the US is having issues with, you know, like how do you make all those bikes work the same? It's pretty difficult.
Right.
Yeah, but if you want to see some of this.
Yeah, let's take a look at the data. Oh, maybe I should give you some sharing rights first, huh?
Yeah, you're always doing that.
Yeah, well, it's on.
Share screen. Okay, so let me see here. Which screen is it? This one. Okay, let's share. You see it?
Yes, I do see it.
Okay.
Also,
so
just a heads up before you get started, it was also like the guy on the 1299 trying to race again in the twins class, which was like, you know, R7s and SVs, and the guy trying to explain to me, and I'm like, nah, there's no explanation, dude. Here's the rule book. Like, read it. Like, it's pretty clear that your bike's not legal for the class. But it wasn't his bike, and he borrowed it, and he just saw the name of the class and thought, hey, I'm a twin.
Right.
Yeah. So
okay, so you had some drama there.
Yeah, you know, it's typical.
Yeah, fun. So back to Superbike racing.
Yes, back to talented racers.
Yeah, I'm not saying those guys aren't talented. It's just not super.
I mean, no, most people in club racing are never going to get the call, right? Like, we're kind of out there hanging out, camping for the most part, and
maybe, yeah, they're having a good time. That's their gig.
Yeah.
So let me explain the screen a little bit.
Okay.
So this yellow line that's going all crazy there.
Yes.
See how it looks so irregular?
Yes.
You know, that's the front suspension, and you can see where it gets really, really stick and irregular. That's when he's off the track. So then you can see this other yellow squigglies down here.
Yeah.
That's the velocity of the rear suspension. So you can see there's sections of the track where it's getting, front suspension. So yellow goes to yellow, and green is the rear suspension, right?
Okay.
So and then over here is your map, the track map. You see where the track map is?
Yeah.
So he's cruising along, you know, braking to this corner, and then he's like, he's going in there fourth gear, and this line right here, that's the gear position.
Okay.
So he's in fourth, third, second, goes to first, doesn't quite rotate the shifter all the way because see this blue line right here?
Yeah.
So that blue line is a lean angle. So he's actually 46 degrees to the right. And then he's switching direction. And when he switches direction, he's making the back shift to go into that first gear corner. So he's trying to get into first, but then when he punches first, looks like he holds second off a little bit and then goes to first. And when he punches first, you can see the bike made the blip. This is the does the blip, and then it comes out of first.
Oh.
So it went to zero. So he's 42 degrees to the left, right? And he's not going to make the corner. So watch over here. Maybe we can blow this section up like that, so you can see it.
Yeah.
Better. So
Yeah.
he's not going to make the corner. So he's like, got to punch out. So he goes straight. So he goes straight there and he punches the other way in the second. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now he can't make first. So he's like, crunch, crunch, no first. Punches the second, starts getting some engine braking happening.
Okay.
By then, his lean angle is like 39 degrees. And then he starts going off the racetrack right about then. He gets the first hard hit on the front suspension.
Yeah.
You know, it's 111 millimeters. Then he cruises through the dirt. He's getting all this stuff going on. The back end's almost off the ground. And that's when he hits that berm shot right there.
Yeah, the double jump.
Yeah, the double. So he does that. He clears that dude. So he gets full all the way to the bump stop, 128.7. So he's into the bump stop. And then the rear goes 42.4 millimeters. So he's not quite into the stop on the rear because his rear shock is a little probably stiff for off-roading. You know, so then he starts going over the dirt like full stroke, boom, 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 all the way through the fork. And look at the velocities. See that yellow, those yellow lines? They're off the chart velocities. So you're getting, here's the velocity here. So it's getting like 1,500 millimeters a second. So if you can imagine how fast that is, like almost 1,600 millimeters a second, the front fork is getting, and then the rear is getting somewhere around 156 millimeters a second. So not nearly as fast as it goes through a linkage. But yeah, some crazy, crazy stuff. Right here, it says it's 2,900. Yeah, 2,900 and something. I can't see. It's all covered, but yeah, 2,931 millimeters a second. That's pretty crazy velocity fast the front fork is seeing. So yeah, so then he gets out over here off the reservation, off the racetrack, gets down off the hill, turns around and comes back.
So Tim P wants to know, like, do I rebuild all the suspension stuff after that just to make sure no internal damage or anything?
No, because believe it or not, we see 128 millimeters in. So let's see if we can like minimize this, and we'll minimize this. And for instance, right here where the G out is, there's a G out spot right there.
Yeah.
And every lap we bottom the fork there, 128 millimeters right there. Every lap when the G's out, the bottom's the fork there, front and back. You see how the front goes to 128 and the back goes to 38. That's shock stroke, by the way, 38 millimeters. So it's really double wrapped by 70 millimeters. So you can't tune the bike stiff enough for that section. So you just deal with it.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's the section you were talking about where Jake was jumping? Is that the G out section, or is it?
No, that was over here. You see where I'm pointing out that area? That's when he's getting a lot of spin coming up there. Because you come up there full throttle. So we go to the rider screen here. Pick one. So that would be let this thing load up. A lot of data in this thing. Oh, it didn't do the track map for whatever reason. Yeah, for whatever reason, track's not coming up. But that'd be this area here where he's like full throttle going through there.
Yeah.
And you're getting quite a bit of, see where the rear tire is right there? That orangey color versus the yellow.
Yeah.
That's the rear tire. That's squishing and spinning and sliding. And then over here, this is not Jake's Cameron, but you can see there's a spike right there.
Yeah.
That should be spin. And then right where it's spinning, he's releasing the throttle a bit. So Jake generally tries to get the full throttle and stay there. And then he lets us tune the rest. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so that's where you end up with some things of that nature. All right. There you go.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. So I think that's about it, man.
No other questions? Nothing?
Yeah, I don't have any more questions. Like, I know there was some people talking about more about the American Iron thing, and I'm just like, there is no scandal.
No, I'm not.
There is no drama. What?
Sorry, man. I'm not into it. Never been into it. Not going to be into it. I'll retire without being into it.
Right. So you're not going to build an attack bagger?
No.
No?
No, not with breakaway bags and certain sizes and lean angle.
But carbon fiber, right?
No, not even billet ones. Just not going to do it.
Okay.
I was, before we did this SBKC committee thing or the group thing,
Yeah.
council, I think we're calling it, Superbike council. Before we started that, we are thinking I had to go and see for myself, like what are the entries? How many people are showing up? Guess who has the largest entry group in Motor America? Which class?
Stock 1,000.
Yeah, close. Superbike.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's quite a few real Superbike entries, and then with Superbike Cup, Superbike is actually the biggest full season entry out of all the classes. Baggers is like a dozen, maybe a little bit more, full season, and Supersports kind of gone downhill because of the rules package. There's very few.
Right.
And Junior Cup is like 11 or 12. It's pretty sad. And so
Junior Cup used to have like 50 bikes in it or something, didn't it?
Junior Cup. Well, all those things are kind of like one race here and there. So you have the guys that show up to one event, but they're not the guys they're going to be there the whole season.
Okay.
Or at least they're not doing their season entry.
Okay.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So Superbike, there's season entry of pretty large grid. Not 7, 9 rows or whatever the heck it is. It's pretty decent. So it was encouraging that Superbike's going the way it is. So make a long story short, I don't think the whole bagger thing is really long lived. It's like Super Motard. I don't think there's going to be a 10 teams of baggers racing at all the nationals. It's not going to happen.
I mean, I do think it's cool that it's brought more faces to come watch the races.
I like that part for sure.
Bringing more semis into the paddock, more people buying t-shirts and hot dogs and crap, right? I think that's great. But then again, the history of the sport, I mean, I can remember the BMW Boxer Cup thing,
Yeah.
right? The Harley XR 1200 thing.
Yeah.
Right? The what?
Super Motard. Yeah, the Pro Thunder.
Pro Thunder. Pro Thunder lasted a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I hope that those Orange County Triumph guys win a championship in that, right?
Yeah, Curtis Adams, yeah,
on Triumph. But again, came and went. They're always trying to experiment with something to put, butts in the seats, but it doesn't seem to ever have any long term. I think that if they just made a great show out of the top classes, which seems to be what they're doing with Inside Motor America,
yeah,
Pressure Rise show.
Pressure Rise show is really good. It's really
pretty good. I mean, look at World Superbike, MotoGP. They have 3 really good classes for the most part, and people watch them. MotoGP, Moto2, Moto3, and you don't need any more than that to get a good show going.
Yeah.
So I think that's the important part. But I understand they want to fill every grid, and they want to fill up the parking lot, and I think it's more headache than it's worth, to be perfectly honest with you.
So Rick Crespo asks, if you weren't so busy with the Superbike stuff, would you consider doing the Twins Cup thing? Because the rules are pretty open, and it would be interesting to see what you'd come up with.
Yeah, that part would be interesting, but it'd be hard for me to do that. I think if we didn't have Superbike in the US, I'd probably be doing Europe.
Fair enough. And then what factor do you think the rider's height plays? Like, is Sculpt's just too tall, or is his height an advantage?
At some tracks, it's an advantage. In some tracks, he's too tall. Yeah. I think in Superbike, it seems to be a plus. And Jake's pretty lanky. He's not as tall as Sculpt's, but he can get over the front of the bike really good. He can make the bike do certain things. And you see Matt has a way of being able to make the bike do certain things as well. So I think the only disadvantage is in that height is the weight.
Right.
Well, I think Jake's 5 pounds lighter than Cameron. Something thereabouts. So he's got a weight advantage as well. I know Cameron's trying really hard to be on that fitness level, but also the bikes require really quite a bit of fitness, like long-term fitness, because you can ride them so hard.
Yeah.
We talked about that too, is they're so they're so easy to ride that you can ride them super hard for a long period of time. So you have to be super fit to be able to ride those things.
Right. Yeah. Mick Knudsen says he's entertained the most with the twins class and Superbike.
Yeah, well, I didn't say it wasn't entertaining. I just don't know if I would be wholeheartedly into it.
Well, I just remember how long when I brought you the FZ07 from Yamaha, we were the first ones in the country with it, and we brought it to you, and it sat in your shop for 3 months. Like you weren't in a big hurry to build anything for it because it's just not your thing.
No, I think we're probably in the middle of doing that, taking over the factory deal. So it was super bad timing, if I remember right.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. So you down to talk a little bit about Laguna again before we wrap?
Yeah, sure, man.
Yeah. So it was pretty crazy walking through there and seeing all those people and seeing like Dunlop's a sponsor of the series now.
Is
and
it?
Yeah, they came in and they brought this big inflatable thing, and Dunlop everywhere and on the podium. Like the club had ridiculous amount of champagne ceremonies for.
Is that a spec tire now, or is it just a sponsor of the series?
It's just a sponsor of the series. It's not a spec tire. Yeah. So I ran my Pirellis like always. I did try that X tire, which was pretty neat.
Oh yeah, SCX.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was like, why haven't I never ridden this before? This tire is awesome. It's like crap.
Well, yeah. Well, Superbike tire. I think that SCX changes from year to year, so it's just a designation.
Oh, does it?
Yeah. About you'd have to talk to what's his name about it. Yeah.
And then Tim P asks if I'm super fit. Dude, I am not super fit, but I'm in pretty good shape right now. I mean, I ride my bicycle a ton, did that 20 lapper without even breaking a sweat hardly. So
Cool.
That was pretty neat. I will say this. I have a guy, customer of mine. He's a surgeon, and he basically he's got like a condition where he's losing the use of his hands. So he's had to kind of retire from surgery. And so somehow it's written on the back of this. He gave me this painting on Friday.
Wow.
That's pretty neat, right? But he paints it in a unique way. Like he lays it out on a table flat. He can't use an easel because his hands won't work. And so he has like a nice little note on the back of like what he's done. His name's Gary Patey. Super nice guy, but like totally unexpected to get something like this,
Nice, really cool.
And then almost all of the club's classes are sponsored. So, I mean, all the way down to, like a fit energy drink thing, and the tire gauge guy, the Mulico tire gauge guy, he's like giving away stuff. And then, just about anything every class you can think of. There's an ice cream guy. Foster's Freeze is sponsoring the class, right?
Wow.
Yeah, I haven't talked about it yet. I just found out today, but the guy at our next round, the Foster's Freeze guy, is going to do a Saturday night ice cream social.
Do they have Foster Freeze in Portimao?
I don't know, man. That would be awesome.
Is that we're really considering doing a wild card at that round?
I got to get my plane tickets for that just to prep.
Yeah, it's the race after Barber, so it's the weekend after. So it's going to be a pretty tight schedule to get everything logistically happening, to send the bike and some parts and wheels and stuff to Portimao.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, so Saturday night, this past weekend, we had, was it Salinas City Barbecue? They came out and catered for us, and that was great. Maria Sid from she's like the local farmers insurance lady there. I think you might have met her. If not, I'll introduce you next weekend to her. I'm sure she'll be at the races. But Maria sponsored a dessert bar. So she had all kinds of cupcakes and crap there. So it was pretty neat, man. Like it was a really good time as a racer myself. Racing at Laguna has always been kind of a dream of mine, and I mean, I know you tried to scumbag me into doing Superbike a few years ago, and I was just not having it, and then I went and ruined myself. Right. So that was the year, right? 2018 was the year I was going to come to Laguna, and then I broke
Yeah,
my
I think
back.
Superbike's a little more competitive now than it was then. Because back then you could have out qualified a couple of guys in the back.
Right.
You know,
Right.
you could have done it and qualified too, but I think it's a pretty deep field nowadays. Like even the guys in junior and Superbike Cup are pretty decently fast.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't going much faster than Bryce Prince went on his R7.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Dude, Bryce Prince went 32s on the R7.
Yeah,
That's fast.
yeah, he's a professional racer.
So, yeah, it was cool, and we had a lot of grids that were 40 plus bikes.
Yeah, that's really good.
I mean, that's what you want. So
where do you see this club going? You gonna get some more time? I mean, you don't have enough dates right now.
we don't. We're looking at getting some more dates for next year. Obviously, we're talking to Laguna already about redoing that weekend next year if we can. I know they've got some construction going on. I guess they're going to repave the place and do a bridge. They're finally going to tear down the front straightaway bridge, I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You know, that old creaky bridge that we've been walking across forever, they're finally rebuilding it. So, hopefully the second track at Buttonwillow, Les is going to the permit office every day to try to get those last two permits that they've been sitting on. So, once the second track
open that thing.
Do what?
That'd be cool if they finally open that thing.
I know, man. I don't remember it. Did I drive you around the?
No.
I think you were busy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was trying to get you to go.
Yeah.
But yeah, it looks like a lot of fun. So hopefully Les gets that done, and we could race on that surface as well. But yeah, like it was an amazing weekend. I'm looking forward to the next one there. I want to do it again.
Nice.
So, all right, man. Well, I will wish you the best of luck at Laguna. I'll see you there. Hopefully, I'll have to go get my credential and my parking pass.
Right.
You have to put in for that, I guess.
I need to put you on the list.
I don't know if you did or not.
I should put you on the list, I guess.
Maybe you should put me on the list, man.
All right. Sounds good.
All right. Well, I'll see you. Oh, last thing is, I don't know if you know this, or if Joseph told you, but myself, Joseph, and Matt Testa wore the Attack Daytona shirts. So
I think somebody showed me a photo of them there. Yeah.
Was that somebody named Joseph by chance?
Maybe. I don't remember.
All right.
Cool.
Yeah, I saw multiple people wearing that shirt in the pits too.
Yeah, no, they all sold out.
Yeah, maybe we should make more. I don't know.
Yeah, you don't want to do any past its prime,
All right.
That was Daytona. That was so early 2022.
Yeah, so basically, if you didn't get the Daytona shirts, sorry.
Yeah, we have like a couple. I think we might have like a double XL or something. Sitting here, pretty big boys. Might have one or two of those left.
Right on.
Cool, man.
All right, Richard. Well, I'm going to let you get back to your drinking your coffee and doing whatever you're doing in the shop.
Working.
All right, man.